So there was all of that, and my parents didn't know how to deal with it because I didn't live with them at the time. So I visit them every day because I was getting scared of myself. Like mentally I wasn't doing well, and then like I think about a month in, I remember like I think it was either my mother or my father, and this is not making them sound bad or anything, but I do remember a time where they're like, I think you might just be acting, like playing out, just trying to get attention. And at that point, I felt like, oh, well, they don't believe me, so I truly am on my own. So then I started repressing myself even more, you know,
Mm.
recluse, and it only got worse, right? Because you're just truly stuck. And I remember at that point, I was so far gone that like I started believing in things that just are not true, like delusional, and they're close to the breaking point for me is whenever I started seeing things moving out of the corner of my eyes, and I was like, oh, well, now I'm hallucinating, so now I probably will be in some psych ward for the rest of my life, never going to get married like I wanted to, never going to have a family. Then it drives you even further down. And it got to the point where my anxiety was so high that my body started rejecting food. So I would try to eat and I would just like purge it back up like a half hour later because I was so anxious. But I still ate every day. I ate at least 3 meals a day, knowing that I had to. Like it was a survival thing at that point. I needed the nutrients and the minerals, whatever I could get for the short time it was there. I was trying to eat, so I was losing weight too. I was getting weak, and on day three of that, I was at work and we were just doing small odds and ends things with my coworkers. Um, because the vet was out on she had to do her CEUs, and so she went to a seminar, and so we're all kind of spread out in this clinic doing like deep cleaning, ensuring like our the kennels are good, so we're as sanitary as possible and stuff like that. And I was left alone, just having all of these chaotic thoughts just going. And I was like hearing a voice saying, like, do it. It was no other description, but innately and like at a conscious level, I kind of knew what like that voice in my head was telling me. And it was an audible one. And then finally, like, I heard it, but this time it sounded like my coworker. And I turned around and it really was my coworker. She didn't say do it, but I think what she was doing was asking if I was okay. Because she looked in my eyes and I could see in her eyes that she knew something was up. And like at that point, I was like gearing up to just explode. So I was like, I'm not feeling well. Like, I need to go home. And so on my way home, like, I decided to make a choice that wasn't the best choice. And I was like, okay, like, I'm gonna commit to this, like I'm gonna do this. And I got to the front porch and I finally opened the door. And I remember feeling like everything, like just all of the emotions, like so much feeling that it was physically overwhelming. It was physically overwhelming. And I dropped to my knees and I scream, God, take this from me. Just take it. Like, and I'm bawling my eyes out. I'm on my knees and it's so much weight, so much emotion, and so many voices going on. And and then I decided to continue on. So I stood up, I walked into the kitchen and got things set up. I'm not gonna go into anything. And I was so weak. I remember I was like, oh, I gotta write a note or something. And so I go to grab a pen and I'm trying to write, and my handwriting is bad anyway. But like I was just so weak because I was in fight or flight mode and I hadn't had proper nutrients, and I was just so weak and I couldn't write. So then I was like, what do I do? Like I don't want to leave them hanging. I want them to know that like it was nobody's fault but mine. And so I pick up the phone and I call my mother. And as I was calling, I turned around real quick because I wanted to pace back and forth in the kitchen. And so I went to turn. I spun so fast that I literally fell because I was so weak, and my eyes were just so full of tears, and I could see through the blur of my tears that were just utterly coming out that there was that red dot on the phone, which told me
Mm.
she answered. And
Yeah.
so all I could muster out was is I can't. And I kept saying that like as loud as I could scream it. I just kept screaming, I can't. I can't. I can't. And my mom was dead silent. I knew she was there. I knew like innately I knew she was there. But she didn't say anything. And then it was silent for like a few minutes. And uh sorry, it's an emotional thing, so I'm trying to get through
No, no,
this.
no.
Um but yeah, so she was silent. I could hear her heavy breathing, and all she said is she's like, "Can you just give me like 10 minutes?" She's like, I'm out of the door. She's like, "Just give me 10 minutes." And I was like, "Oh, I can do 10 minutes. I can do 10 minutes." So I literally was like baby crawling to the couch, and I sat on the couch, and then the cat that I had at the time like laid on my lap, and that snapped me out of this. Like, I feel like my body was coming down from the fight or flight because I remember like my entire arms and stuff felt like needle pricks. It was my nervous system like coming back to. So it literally felt like all these tiny needles were just poking my body because I was in such a hysterical state. And I remember the cat, who has since passed, unfortunately. I got a picture of him right here. I mean, that wrecked me whenever he passed because, oh man, I don't even know if I want to go in there. But he laid in my lap and it snapped me out. It snapped like it just. I remember looking down and I'm so weak. I'm so skinny. I'm I can't even tell you what I looked like. Like I just the worst I've ever felt in my life. And then I start feeling like this warmth in my chest, and I'm like something loves me because it was he was purring in my lap, and like I was screaming and flailing around. I can't even believe he wasn't hiding under the couch. And he didn't shy from that side of me. He saw that side, but yet still laid in my lap. And then I was like, you know what? I choose life. And I said that out loud. At that point, I said, I choose life, and I'm going to do whatever I can to keep that life, like to keep it. Sorry, because because I'm worth it. At that point, that was the first time in my life that I said that I'm worth it. And uh, I was shifting. There was that shift, and in me, where I finally, for the first time, said, I'm worth it. I'm worth the fight. Like my life isn't done. Like this doesn't define me. So, my mother showed up, and I declined the ambulance, but they took me to a mental health hospital where I stayed for a little bit. And I lied. I lied to them. If anybody's listening, never, never lie about SI, suicidal ideation. Never, never. Please be honest because you're worth it. You are worth it. Yes, you'll stay at a mental health hospital, but do whatever they ask you to do. Participate in group. Eat your dinner if you can. Take time. Don't force yourself, but each day try to do one thing that they ask you to do because you're worth it, and your life is worth it. The time you're in feels like it'll be like that forever, but it won't. It won't be. There's going to be hard times, but there's also going to be the good times. And I thought that was like ground zero for me. Like I thought I hit rock bottom, but actually things continued to get worse for me because I was just starting to try to understand what is this? What am I experiencing? What is my life going to be like? And And it just it wasn't working for me. And I finished out the program, and my boss picked me up. She came back from her thing and she picked me up. Like, that's so amazing. I had so much support, and there are people out there that don't have it. And I was very blessed to have the people in my life that I did. And I decided to do one-on-one individual counseling. I did it for 2 days a week, and I went through two different therapists before I had my third one, who I considered saved my life and changed my entire outlook on life. But I'm very grateful for those therapists, because a lot of people go to therapy and they decide that it's not working for them and they leave and they never try therapy again, not realizing everybody has their own approach, everybody has their own ideas, perspectives, and ways of doing things. But my therapist was like, I can tell that we're not quite working, but I have this person. So I'm going to pass the baton to them. And they passed it, and then I took it and worked with them, and they're like, I can tell we're not going to work, but I know exactly who's going to work. And then they gave me her, and then all three of them recommended meditation and mindfulness practice. They're like, have you ever considered this? And I was like, well, shit, I got to give it a go. Like, if I truly meant what I said, then I got to try everything. And I practiced every day, 5 minutes, working up to 10 minutes a day, and then I started practicing 2 times a day. And it wasn't until that third month that I truly grasped like how I perceived my mindfulness practice. And it wasn't the idea that you silence your mind. You can quiet your mind just by focusing on your breath. It's the idea of bringing acceptance and grace to what your practice is in that moment and who you are in that moment, which allows you to give grace to yourself for when you get angry. So, like, in a practice, I will sit and I will do some mindful breaths, which helps me like relax my body. So I'll take 3 deep breaths and let them out, and then I'll start my practice. And I'll begin to just bring curiosity towards how the air feels through my nose. And then I'll be like, oh shit, like Taylor asked me to do this today. I better get that done today. I got to do that. And I'm like, oh wait, thought, let's come back to the breath. Then I bring it back, not judging myself for it, just bringing curiosity to what the thought was, and then bringing it back to the breath. And so I
Mm,
can apply that to when I get angry at Taylor. Whenever I'm absolutely mad at Taylor, I can be like, oh, like I'm more aware of myself now, right? Like that practice uses you to be more aware of yourself. So I can catch it faster because I'll be like, oh, I feel that burning sensation in my chest. What's going on? I'm angry. Why am I angry? Taylor said this, which hurt me. And I want to hurt her back because she hurt me, but that's not fair to her because I don't know what she went through that day. I have no idea.
yeah.
She's in oncology. She sees death and despair and sadness all day, all day. I don't know what that's like. I have no idea. So who am I to hurt her back just because she hurt me? I have no idea what
Mm,
kind of day. That's me giving grace to myself first, being like, it's okay to be angry, it hurt. But then I apply grace to her because I can make a story that she's the bad person, but she's not. She's just a person like anybody else who snaps sometimes. I've been in that situation where I've said something to her that brought her to tears, and I'm like, man, I was such an ass, you know? So I
mm,
know what that's like, so I can give grace to her in those moments. And that changed me. That brought acceptance to those experiences. I still experience them. I just have a better understanding, and I hug it rather than try to fight it. Because the more you fight it, the bigger it
mm,
gets.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean that saved my life. So that like kind of snowballed into me being like, now I want to know what I want to know life. I want to know more about life. Give me the
Mm,
information. Like I was telling you, at that point I
yeah.
just wanted to learn about myself. And my wife, who was my fiance at the time, she I was talking to her about this podcast that I was listening to, and I was like raving about it, and she's like, man, like, and everybody was telling me like, man, you really like you get life. Like I'm 60 and I don't understand like that. I've never had that, but that motivates me to understand that. I've had
Yeah.
multiple people tell me that at that point, and then my wife finally just said one day, "Why don't you just go back to school for it?" And I was like, "Yeah, why don't I?" And so I
Yeah.
did. So 3 years ago, I went to Purdue online and got my bachelor's in the science of psychology, and then I am still trucking through my Butler grad school right now. I'm about halfway done. I'll start my supervised practicum in the next year. And yeah, I mean that's like in a nutshell like my whole life really, and
Yeah.
that's the story that really motivates me to do. I've talked about SI, and I deal with SI is suicidal ideation and suicide awareness, and I've talked about all of that for uh, at public speaking, but I also deal with it in my day to day at the hospital that I work for right now. I run groups, like group activities for the hospital, and I teach meditation classes there. And yeah, it's just I feel so congruent with what God wants me to do now, and
Mhm.
I'm a practicing Buddhist. I practice the Eight Noble Truths and the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, but how I do it is through my Christian faith. So
Mm.
I could go into Buddhism and all that, but research it on your own, because it Buddhism doesn't ask you to worship another god or worship yourself. It's just being aware of yourself and loving yourself and learning how to bring awareness to the world around you and yourself without judging it. And that makes made me a better Christian. I reread the entire Bible, and now I do adversity classes for churches now, and I bring perspectives to people that they're like, "Oh my gosh, I've never really seen it that way." But I also have the class as an open concept, so I can have others teach me their perspectives and how they saw it, and it helps the entire class learn the relationship that they have with anger, learn the relationship that they have with anxiety and worry, learn the relationship that they have with guilt or temptation, and to realize that all of these feelings are normal. And the Bible verse that I use to really drive it home is it's I think it's in Romans. It says, "Be
Mhm.
angry, but don't let the sun set on your anger." Meaning, experience anger, acknowledge it, but don't carry it and hold it because it'll turn
Mhm.
into hate. And hatred's the poison that you drink yourself, expecting it to kill your enemies. So I don't know. It really has changed everything in my life. I have had some pretty rough times, and I ended up going through EMDR after the red carpet because there's a lot of things that I needed to address that I didn't process as a child because I didn't have that connection yet. I threw all
Mhm.
of those memories back there, and some of them were traumatic, and I had no idea. And I struggle with like unwanted intrusive thoughts that really make me feel like a Jackal and Hyde kind of deal. Like I feel like this good person because I work every day and I help people, but then I have these corrupted, unwanted thoughts that happen that are out of my control, but it still makes me feel like I have this dark side to myself. But through my mindfulness practice, I just bring acceptance to the experience. And it teaches me to hug that side of myself, saying, I see you and it's okay. But I
Mhm.
have the power to say, I don't have to be that person. And that's kind of the story.